everyone, and welcome to the Azure Dreams Rock Me to the Top tournament. This is a bit of a getting back to our roots type of tournament, in that for the most part, what we're going to be seeing tonight is a vanilla any percent race. There is a bit of a caveat to that, however. We do have a de-randomizer thanks to a good community member, programmer, it who's given us the ability to make seeds. So each tower will be the same for runners. Those familiar with this game will likely know that every tower visit is random. We have the ability to make that the same for both runners. We will be ticking that off, and we will also be skipping the opening cutscene and any of the tutorial stuff that you would normally get on floor 1. Other than that, everything else remains the same. Both runners will have 1 hour to get as far as they can in the tower. If both of them die on the same floor, whoever got there first will be the victor of that round. Other than that, the only rules here are that you are not allowed to leave the tower by any means. That means no wind crystals, no feeding Olim fruit to your own familiar, and probably the most relevant is no dying. We will hopefully get some very interesting matches tonight with Lady Deme and Sustainna, and I will be joined in commentary by the wonderful Chai. How you doing, Chai?
How you doing, Chad? How you doing, Revan? Happy to be here.
Thank you, saying that. I appreciate the swooning. Very shortly, we should be getting started here with the runners set off. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the layout. It looks like we're on a different screen at the moment.
Yeah, seems we're still working on it, so while it's there, we can talk a little bit about the game itself, because yeah, we haven't been here on a speed gaming for a while. It's been a few months since the last tournament. And like Revan said, this tournament is a little bit different. We are going back to the roots. But maybe, Revan, can you tell us a bit about the game itself for those who have never seen the game? What is it all about?
Oh, where to start? Where to start? For those that know what roguelikes are, this is a prime example. And a lot of times, members of our community, this will be one of the first that they've ever played or their most favorite for various reasons. But what that means is that every time you go into the tower, which is the main, there's two things. You can either go into the tower or you can do some town building things with dating sims and stuff like that. But we're focusing on the tower. Every time you go in the tower, it will be different. It'll have a random layout. You'll have random items, random traps, monster encounters, and all of that stuff will be different every time you go into the tower. So, however, that is on a normal game. This one will be the same for both of our runners. So we'll have an interesting lineup in that both runners will be encountering the same things, but how they react and handle with them will be drastically different. And we'll see how that works out for them in their climb to 40 for the ultimate egg. Do you want to maybe touch on some of the more detailed stuff that I left out, Chai?
That was pretty good introduction to the game. So the rest, let's not tell too much so that some of the things can be a surprise during the game. But yeah, what we are hoping here to see is that our players can handle the tower, because it can be very, very brutal. This game is not easy. Let's say that it's balanced in a way that it's imbalanced. Monsters get strong very, very quick, and you are not able to handle them in a normal way. So most of our runners, because of course this is a speedruns, they will try to avoid the fights. But at some point, they cannot avoid it anymore, and they will have to fight, take a hit or something like this. So if they don't fight enough in the beginning and level up a bit, they will not be able to handle the stronger monsters. So there is always a question of like how much they should fight so that they will be strong enough, but not too much so that they will be not too slow. So maybe Revan, can you tell us what kind of strategies we usually have from our runners for this kind of let's say problems that they can meet in the tower?
Oh, in this specific tournament, we will likely see both runners picking up Kuhn. He's the default familiar that you're supposed to pick up on your first entry. If we're lucky, we actually might see one or both of them actually skip getting the little blue guy. But moving on into the tower, we'll likely see both runners scour the first 5 or so floors, trying to build up a bit of an inventory because the monsters on those floors, they're significantly less scary than everything above them. Most of the enemies are fairly weak. You'll run into trolls and little palumpas and stuff like that. And the scariest thing you'll encounter on those floors is by far a cyclone or possibly a flame, in which case you have mixture magic with Kuhn, and you should be able to take them out relatively easily. They'll also be guaranteed to get a fireball with 5 charges that'll easily take care of both of those. However, they will most likely want to hold on to that fireball for as long as they can for the higher level floors, because those attack balls are incredibly powerful and incredibly useful on the later floors against specific monsters. They give a ton of experience, so they can catch up on levels rather quickly if they manage to get that far. But I think we'll probably see both runners being picking up Kuhn here, and like I said, they'll probably scour the first 5 or so floors, and then I would imagine they'll probably try to make a beeline until roughly floor 10, because the floors in between 5 and 10 are pretty scary. It should be noted that Azure Dreams is definitely not a game that was intended to be speedrun or beat in a single go. There are several places when you're climbing the tower that the game makes it very obvious that you are not supposed to be strong enough to continue on, and it'll either punish you and kill you and take all of your items, or it expects you to find a wind crystal and get out of just get out of dodge and come back stronger and more well stocked and all of that good stuff. But that is not the goal of this. These runners are intending to get to floor 40 in one go, which is definitely a feat in its own right.
Oh yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's definitely not easy. And let's say that there are sort of like two types of runners in this game. Some that favor safety a little bit more, and some that favor speed a little bit more. And of course, if you go more for the speed, then you give up safety, and then the success rate of the climb to the 40 usually decreases by quite much. But before I will like speak more about this thought, it looks like we are ready. So I will try to like start our runners. I'll give the floor for now to Revan to tell you a little bit more about our runners and what we can expect from them.
Right. So both runners have actually played in previous tournaments. I know that Lady Deme has actually been a member of the Stars tournament, and I believe she was also in a previous doubles tournament and in the last tournament, the Rock Me to the Top Random Toolkit Edition. Sustainna, I believe, has been in one other tournament. I don't actually know which one, but I'm pretty sure that he's been a tournament runner before. So both of these runners are actually fairly experienced in the game and know quite a few tricks to get in and out of trouble here. There's I don't know how to put this. There's a lot of nuances to the game between fancy footwork in your movement, being able to dodge enemies, and just general game knowledge, being able to recognize when something is aggroed onto you, or when it will aggro onto you, or when it's not, and how to deal with that. Um, Recognizing what enemies are big threats and which ones that you can maybe play around with, or things that you can gamble with. Both of these runners are fairly familiar with things like that. We'll probably see a bit of lifting. Maybe if we're really lucky, we'll see the infamous push strats. They are pretty cool, I think, in certain situations. And perhaps it's just me, but it looks like we're having a bit of freezing
It's not
issues.
just you. We are checking. Our runners have been already count down. They already started the race, but we don't see it yet. We'll be like still commentating while we are fixing the technical difficulties, but we should be back with the stream in a moment while our runners are already running. Oh,
Okay, okay. So yes, it seems we have a bit of technical difficulties at the moment, but the way that this will work is that time will start as soon as they move. The first step after leaving Ko's house will start the timer. They'll have exactly 1 hour to try to get to floor 40, and you know, whoever gets higher faster will obviously win. I believe I mentioned earlier, if they get to the same floor, whoever got there first will be the victor. And it looks like Sustainna is actually unfrozen a bit. We get to see the quick tutorial floor. There was no tutorial information from our buddy Kuhn, and all of the items on the first floor were all nicely lined up for us. We ended up getting a copper sword, a wooden shield, fireball with 5 charges, even though it doesn't show that. We get an egg with a random color that is always a palumpa, and a medicinal herb. Sorry, I can't speak tonight. Hopefully that is not a recurring thing. Okay, so we are still working on getting Deme's stream going, but we can see Sustaina has actually equipped all of his. Oh, he hit an unfortunate prison trap right away. Luckily, he did pick up Kuhn, so his buddy Kuhn will be able to protect him, hopefully, until the paralysis wears off. It's in a bit of a situation, though. All of these noises are actually wind element versus Kuhn's fire element, so there is the elemental advantage in Kuhn's favor there. That's something we'll have to touch on. Chai, you want to touch on the elemental triangle? I know you're quite fond of certain strats climbing the tower.
oh yeah. So one could say that the element system in this game is sort of simple. There are only three elements: water, fire, and wind. Water beats wind. Water beats fire. Fire beats wind. Wind beats water. Hence the elemental triangle. CUNY is fire. In this floor, the scary monsters are either, let's say, wind or fire. There is one water monster that we've seen just a moment ago, that like cute looking Palumpa, the green thingy, but it's so weak that we don't have a problem with it at all. But the higher we are in the tower, the scarier the monsters that we don't have or that we have disadvantage against are getting, and we're gonna see it pretty soon, especially like when we get to floor 6. That's what we call water floors, were really scary, at least for the early parts of the game. Other monsters show up, and this is also like the time when most of the casual players died for the first time.
Yeah, yeah. Once you get to floor 6 and you start running into the Manevas, the Blooms, it's the game's way of not so nicely telling you that you really shouldn't be here anymore. Kuhn is not exactly designed to take out those tougher enemies. They have a pretty significant HP pool. I believe Blooms have roughly like 35 hit points. Manivas have, I think, around 30, somewhere around there, and can have the ability to split into different clones of themselves. They can hit pretty hard, and the elemental advantage and disadvantage is a very, very big thing in this game, and you'll notice it immediately. You can see with neutral element, Sustainna is actually hitting between 10 and 12 on the flame. If he had been if he had been hitting a cyclone like he just ran into, now he's hitting 15. It might not seem like a lot, only, two or three different damage difference, but when you are in the early game like this and you only have a maximum of 30 hit points, that 3 damage really stacks up really quickly. And once Kuhn is gone, it is not an easy thing to get him back. It is possible if you find a rare item called a restore scroll, but it's very unlikely that either runner will find one, and it's not something that you should really bank on encountering in any given tower run. So for the most part, if their familiar dies, they will be running solo, which is a very scary thing and especially in a tournament. It's a scary thing to run like that to begin with, and even more so in a tournament setting. So we will see how well these runners can take care of their little buddy here. And if they do particularly well, he should do a fairly good job of taking care of them as well.
Okay, we can see that like streams are catching up slowly. There's still like small time difference between Sustainna and Deme stream, but okay, now we are good. Now we are at the same playing field, so we can see where they are. Like Revan mentioned earlier, this is a race. The speedrunning factor of this tournament is that we need to get to the floor 40 as soon as possible. But should they not be able to get to the floor 40, which we hope will not happen, that they will be able to conquer the tower, the deciding factor is who will get to the highest floor first. So we have to observe who is getting to each floor as the first one. For example, right now, Deme and Sustainna are both on floor 4, but Sustainna got there first, so he's currently in the lead.
Chai, I'm noticing, well, not at the moment with Deme being a little bit frozen, but I'm noticing a bit of a discrepancy in their gear here. Deme is actually still using a sword, and it looks like Sustainna has switched to a golf wand. Do you want to explain the significance of that?
Oh yeah, so what they are using is mixture magic, which is like a combined attack of your familiar Cuny and you. The whole damage calculation, that's boring math. Let's not do that here. But the whole idea here is that when you're using a wand, your mixture magic is more powerful than when you're using a sword. And when you're using a wand that has a matching element of the mixture magic that you have, then your magic is even more powerful. So Cuny is fire, like we mentioned earlier. Sustainna is using Golf Wand, which is wind. So it doesn't give you the highest the highest possible multiplier of the damage, but it still gives you the multiplier over the sword. So I guess that was what Sustainna was thinking, that like, okay, I'm gonna use this because this is giving me an advantage. The disadvantage of this part is that now his attack carries 2 elements, fire and the wind. So if he's attacking fire monsters, his attack power is actually decreased a little bit compared to the like maximum what he can get, because he's got disadvantage against fire. So I'm not really sure, because we didn't really see Deme's inventory yet. Might be so that Deme has found that wand, but hasn't decided that, okay, it's still early in the tower. I don't need to have this higher damage yet. I don't want to commit to this equipment yet, so I'm going to go with the sword and see, maybe I'll find something better. And especially important is this commitment part. Can you tell us, Revan, how the tower can troll you when you wear a little bit wrong equipment?
Oh, I would love to, but we just saw Sustainna hit a monster den on floor 5. That is very, very unfortunate. Um, let's see how he tries to get his way out of this. The unfortunate thing about monster dens is even if we've seen both runners pick up some of the loop items, I'm pretty sure that they both picked up an exit loop at one point. But what they do is they allow you to see things on the map. So you can find like an exit loop or a treasure loop or trap loops, which will show where all the traps are located. However, the monster den does not appear with even with a trap loop. It is something that you either hit it or you don't. And if you hit it, you usually end up regretting it. And with it being this early into the tower, it could be a mixed bag of good and bad because it could be a bit of free experience if he can manage to get through this. He does have the wind wand, which a lot of the enemies in here, these yellow Maneva things, are actually water elements, so he would have advantage on that.
We can see that Deme is on floor 5, and she was just next to the elevator. She of course doesn't know that there is a monster den
Oh,
in this
oh,
floor.
she was about one step
She
away
was
from
about
hitting the
to hit
same
it.
trap. And there goes Kuhn on Sustaina's side. Oh, can he manage to get to the elevator? I don't think he's too far away. With the high ground, he should be able to survive another hit. Oh, he does have a medicinal herb.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good one. So it looks like Sustainna will survive, but now he'll have to work without a CUNY. And like Revan mentioned, climbing the tower without CUNY, even though possible, many runners are doing it, it's much, much, much harder and much more RNG than this game, which is already like 90% RNG.
I would
So
just like to point out that those familiar with our community will probably know of a man named Sand Knight, and he is actually the one that generated these set of seeds. So good one, Sand Knight. We appreciate it.
yeah, it's a running joke in our community that we blame Sand Knight for everything, and because he did generate those seeds, the blame here would be very valid.
And we were actually talking with Sustainna briefly before the match started, and he was quite concerned that Sand Knight was the one that generated these seeds, and we can all see his fears were definitely well founded.
Yeah. Well, one beneficial, at least for us, thing about the Monster Den is that Monster Den is this sweet music. We don't hear it very often. We hear it only when somebody hits the Monster Den, which is not very, very often. So enjoy chat while you still can, because this music will go away the moment Sustainna hits the floor. Sorry, the elevator.
So now that things have calmed down a little bit, I can
Calm
try
down.
and
Do you see
just
Sustainna's screen?
and we're actually seeing Lady Deme take the lead now.
Yes, with that,
But
Lady Deme takes the lead.
but to get back to the question previously, but how can the troller, the tower, troll you with equipment? Occasionally, when you equip an unidentified item, that is one that has the green text, there is a percent chance that it could be cursed, and that is bad in multiple ways, potentially. The cursed status will prevent you from removing any. Oh, and Sustainna is getting very, very close. There's the elevator, though. Barring it. Oh, my lord. And Sustainna's down on floor 5.
But
Lady Deme actually takes round 1 already. That was really unfortunate.
that's a classic troll from this game. You are already on elevator. You think you're safe. The horror is over. I'm ready for the next floor. But no, before you actually like click yes, I do want to go to the next elevator, monsters still do get the turn to attack you. And those that have ranged magic are very happy to do so.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's
and
what we've seen.
especially Flames. They are quite trigger happy with their sled spell. And once we start getting into some of the higher floors, we'll see some even more deadly enemies that are quite trigger happy as well. Are you working on getting them set up for round 2, Chai?
Yes, I am. They will be loading a second seed. So this round goes to Deme, but nothing is lost. This is best of 3. Sustainna still has a chance to win. So let's see how the next seed's gonna go. Hopefully, we will not have to say hashtag blame Sand Knight. That second seed will be a little bit more pleasant to our runners. So hype for that.
I would also like to point out that this tournament is a double elimination, so whoever loses here will still have a chance to win. They'll climb their way back up from the losers bracket starting next week, I believe. And but like Chai said, there is no harm, no foul. It was just a bit of an unfortunate circumstance where one runner hit a specific trap and the other just casually walked on by. But while they are getting set up for round 2, I can try and get back onto the cursed uh, talk that I was talking about. Some equipment can have the chance to be cursed, and that will prevent you from being able to remove that specific piece of equipment unless you find an item called a decurse scroll. And while you think that may end your woes because you can now take the weapon or shield off, it actually doesn't end there. Once you get cursed, you are actually afflicted with a curse status as well. And the only way to remove that is with a cure-all herb after you've already used a decurse scroll. And basically what that does, or the curse status effect does, is it lowers your maximum luck value. So say you have just off the top of my head, say you have a 90% hit rate at maximum and a 70% at minimum. The curse status will lower your maximum from 90 to something, I don't know, like 80% or whatever. And the hit range depends on what type of weapon you're equipping. Wands tend to have higher hit rates than swords do because swords do more damage, etc., etc. But the curse status just it doesn't affect the low. It only makes the range that you can get smaller in the negative fashion. So it's definitely not something that you want to have on you if you can help it. So we'll probably see both of the runners picking up some decent gear that in a casual play you might think, oh, screw it, I'll just equip it and whatever happens happens. But in a race situation like this where you only have the one try, the difference between being cursed and not could make the difference between who wins the match and who does not. So they're
Yeah,
probably we'll likely see them be a little bit more picky on what they choose to equip, unless they really don't have a choice. And then in that case, they're they're likely just hoping for the best. So we're seeing, okay, both runners are off again. We'll actually get to see Kuhn be recruited this time.
yeah, that's the beginning of the game that we skipped last time. Like Revan mentioned, normally in the casual playthrough, we would see also a tutorial floor where we would hear CUNY much more telling us a little bit about the tower, but our runners, of course, played this game so many times that they know everything that there is to know about the tower. So we don't want to listen to it. It's 2 minutes of pointless talking. So thanks to our de-randomizer, we can make the tutorial floor with all the benefits of it without spending time on it. So we are getting all the same 5 items that we would normally get, and the elevator is conveniently moved right next to where we spawn. So they can immediately go to floor 2. Touching a little bit more about the subject, on the subject of the curse, like Revan mentioned, one of the worst things of the curse is that you have lower luck. and luck decides stuff like hit chance, critical chance, luck, trap activation, etc. And there is one more other thing that Revan also mentioned, that you cannot remove the equipment that you have that is cursed. Sometimes it's not a big problem if you have equipment that you are okay with, but sometimes, especially in case of elemental equipment, that is a double-edged sword. Because when you've got an advantage with your element against your enemies, then you're good. Then you don't want to change this equipment, right? But because tower changes elements of the monsters pretty much every couple floors, sometimes it can be very, very, very tough. One of the very annoying things that you can meet is when you wear an elemental shield of the wind element called Earth Shield, and then when it's cursed, you're stuck with it, and all the traps that are damaging you are actually of fire elements. So all the traps suddenly deal to you huge amount of damage. In the low level, in level 1, it can even hit you in one go. So it happened before in our random toolkit tournament. So hopefully it's not gonna happen
Uh-oh.
here.
Deme's in a bit of a situation here. Very low HP. Okay. That slow trap really was really bad on her end there. And Sustainna actually had his Cune fall into a small pit and lost Cune. I believe that is because he didn't switch his lineup to have Cune directly behind him. So when he went through that doorway, Cune got stuck and ended up becoming lost. And what being lost for your familiars does, it basically makes them wander around trying to find Ko. And until they find, or until you get within a certain range of them again, you cannot command them to do anything. So usually it's whether they survive or not is really dependent on what enemies you can find on the floor here. And with Kyun being, I believe he was only level 2 at the time, there wasn't a great chance of success for Kyun to be found again if he had encountered something like a flame or a cyclone, which I believe he encountered a flame. So it's a
Yeah,
bit unfortunate for Sustainna, but the game is not over. It is very possible for runners to get from 1 to 40 in one go without a familiar at all. And okay, he got the kill on the flame. Pushing it very close. He's making me sketching me out a little bit. He does have a medicinal herb, trying to get the most out of that, I would imagine.
so not having a familiar is not really like completely bad thing, because most of our speedrunners, those that favor speed, actually do prefer to go without familiar. What would be the rationale here? Is that when you have a familiar, you have to take care of it, and familiar also sort of gives you a possibility to fight against monsters. But fighting is usually slower than not fighting. So when you cannot fight, the only thing that you can do is not fight. And that can make you faster. It doesn't always make you faster, because you can sometimes be in a situation that not fighting is slower. But let's see how Sustaina handles it.
Yeah, and oftentimes it can actually come down to you want to go a certain way and the monsters are telling you no, so you end up getting redirected, and sometimes it's for the best. The way that you are going is the complete opposite way of the elevator, and they just force you to it. So sometimes it can be faster in that regard, and other times they'll just loop you around the whole map and keep you from the one place that you want to be. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there, but like Chai said, usually it tends to be faster going without a familiar, just for the sheer fact that realistically you can't really fight without a familiar, without having without having climbed the tower previously and having strong gear to carry you through, because Ko is actually fairly weak as a unit in the tower without using like spell balls and stuff like that. He can be fairly strong early on if you get a strong sword, like an elemental one or a vital sword, or if you get really lucky and find a dark or holy sword, they can carry you for a ways. But ultimately, Ko is going to end up being drastically underpowered for anything in the tower, and you're really going to need to rely on items or a strong familiar to get you through those situations. So being forced to flee from every encounter not only tends to be faster in some ways, but it also can save you a bit of inventory space or resource management as well.
We could see for a while that Sustainna was actually fighting to get stronger. Wuga made a point in the chat that Sustainna was using the elevation because in this game, when you are like on a higher tile than your opponent, you deal a little bit more damage and you take a little bit less damage. So now that Sustainna doesn't have a familiar, his thought process must have been, okay, I cannot fight at the lower level, so I need to level up while I can still fight so that the higher floors will be a little bit easier. And that's another quote-unquote benefit of not having the familiar is that experience is split between your team. So you and your familiar or familiars, because later on we can have more than one familiar. When you have no familiar, you get the whole experience for killing the monsters. So leveling up is also faster.
We did see that Lady Deme actually briefly used the elevation that Sustainna was taking quite good advantage of earlier. And she's recovering slowly from that encounter. She was a bit close to dying in that one. The high ground, I don't want to say the high ground actually saved her there. That was good movement on her end and letting Kuhn actually soak up some of the damage for her that saved that situation. But I would like to point out that experienced runners like these ones will realize that HP is actually an incredible resource. Because your HP will regain or will recover slowly over time while you're moving or skipping turns. It's a rather quickly renewable resource. So if you can take a hit instead of using an item, sometimes that can be to your benefit. Being able to save that fireball charge or something for an enemy that you couldn't survive a hit from later on. And we're seeing both runners actually take pretty good advantage of that. Sustainna was down to 1 or 2 HP earlier on and on the lower floors, and Lady Deme has actually been hovering in the low teens for a while now.
And yeah, that's a skill that definitely comes with an experience, because on this floor we could see that Lady Dema actually he was on low HP quite many times, sometimes maybe even too close for comfort, but a person of her caliber with that much experience, she knows exactly what she's doing. Like Revan touched on the subject earlier, she pretty much took part in all of the tournaments that we organized but one. So yeah, she's got very good knowledge of the game. I don't think that those early floors can kill her, unless you are in a really bad spot like that monster. Then that one was very tough to do anything about. But currently, like we mentioned earlier, not having a familiar usually makes you faster, and that's exactly what is happening on the screen right now. Sustainna is on floor 5, while Deme is on floor 4. So I should actually switch the audio to Sustainna so that we can mark that he is currently in the lead. And let's see how he can handle those higher floors, because now he will start meeting a little bit tougher monster that probably he doesn't want to fight head on. And Manoiva, to be honest, is one of those monsters. Can you tell us a little bit about the Manoiva Reven? How this monster is special?
Oh, for sure. Manivas are definitely enemies that you will likely want to avoid as often as you can. And I must say, I do like Sustainna's method of inventory management, just chucking everything he doesn't want at the Maniva. I love it. But what Chai is getting at here, the Maniva are special in that you can actually encounter them several times throughout the tower, and each time they get some new tricks. There's I want to say there are two enemies that you encounter pretty much all through the tower, being trolls and Maniva. But on the early floors here, the only real significance of a Maniva is that when you hit them, they have a chance to split. And while the split itself isn't necessarily dangerous per se, they have really low attack, and if you have a decent shield on, they'll likely only hit you for around 1 or 2. But the real danger for them comes in because they can block your path. If you have last run, I believe Sustainna actually had a live shield on, which has the ability to counterattack when you get hit. So if you're trying to walk by a Maniva and your counterattack actually makes it split, that split could end up blocking your path and put you in a really bad situation. But they can also, or you also can't tell the difference between an actual Maniva and one that is split. So if you end up splitting one and it runs away and you encounter another one, you have no way of knowing if it's a strong one or a weak one that you can just kill in 1 or 2 hits. So they can be quite frustrating to deal with in many ways, and that's just on the lower floors. They get significantly worse the higher up in the tower that you go. And we'll touch on that hopefully when they get to those floors. But we have a little bit of ways to go before we get there.
Yes, and Sustainna is now on floor number 6. We can see that the theme has changed a bit. It's a little bit greenish, and this is where quite scary water monsters roam. Now we don't really care that much about the element because Ko on it on his own, he is without any element. It's just that the monsters that he will have to fight here are simply tough. For example, the bloom here, this cute looking flower like thingy. It's a tank. If I recall correctly, it has 37 HP. So Sustainna has to hit him 4 times. So it also means that he will get hit 3 times. And that pretty much took half of his HP. So if there are 2 monsters like that, it can get quite bad pretty fast. So let's see how he is able to handle that. Deme will be on those floors quite soon too. And to be honest, even though she still has CUNY, she won't be in that much better situation either because again, she will have a fire element against water monsters, which is not a good combination. And I'm quite sure she will try to avoid the fight as much as possible.
It might be a slightly different situation if she had been able to find a nice wand to pair with her mixture magic, but both. Oh, and she actually hit a rust trap. It looks like, and a cursed leather shield. That's going to come. Oh, and okay, we're seeing her pull out the golf wand. That'll help her out a little bit with the elemental advantage and the damage bonus just for having a wand on with mixture magic. So she might actually be able to take some fights here that Sustainna just realistically, well, yeah, I'm sure he could take a couple of them, but she's going to be able to fight a lot more than Sustainna would be able to in this situation. And with her leather shield, Chai, her leather shield, why is that potentially significant?
We could see, or maybe not, depending on like how quickly you can check the screen, that leather shield is actually pretty weak when it comes to stats. It had only 1 defense, and now it's even like -1 because it's cursed. So one would think that okay, it's horrible. Why would I ever want to use leather shield? But actually, the defense from the shield especially in the later floors, it's quite negligible. 2 points of defense, regardless of whether it's cold stats or it comes from the shield, decreases the damage taken only by 1 HP.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't know if Sustainna is gonna make this. He needs
oh
to.
yeah.
Oh, he has a
Oh, he's
medicinal.
got
Oh, I know
holy,
Holy Bell. He has a
holy
Holy
bell,
Bell. He's
holy
fine.
bell.
He's
Yeah,
fine.
it will be good.
Sorry about
Uh,
that. Continue.
yeah, but because of that the shield doesn't provide that much defense, we don't care about the stats itself. Leather shield is special in that sense that it has additional chance of completely dodging the attack and hence not taking any damage. Of course, not taking damage is much better than just decreasing a damage by 2 or 3, especially in the higher floors where monsters hit for like 50 or 60. 2 or 3 damage decrease will not make a much difference. So that's why many runners opt, especially in the later floors, to go for the leather shield, because the sheer idea that, okay, I have higher chance of not getting hit, and we can see that this shield does work, that miss chance is much higher with it. This idea makes it very, very interesting for our runners to opt for the leather shield. So even though it's cursed, I don't think that Deme cursed that much. Apart from the fact that like she will have lower hit chance, but she will probably not want to change that shield at all anyways.
Probably not. No. We did see on Sustainna side on floor 8. He actually found a bit of an item room that he had to make. He had to make a bit of a decision there. He found 2 Hazak Seeds, which definitely go in his favor. The Hazak Seed will increase your attack power by 1, so he has an extra 2 damage output permanently.
An egg.
And he
Ooh.
also found, I believe he found some kind of a spell ball, an ice rock ball, and a life wand, which he took a second in deciding whether or not he actually wanted to equip it, because he did take a bit of a damage reduction by putting that on. The copper sword is a little bit stronger, but the life wand will actually give him a small bit of HP back every time he lands a successful hit. So I think in his situation here, that was probably the right call. He'll be able to survive encounters a little more easily with the life wand. And now he has found an egg on floor 9, which could be a few potentially good things. I like that we're seeing the immediate hatch here on his side here.
Oh yeah, I guess Sustainna doesn't want to like take the chance of going without the familiar, so he prefers to hatch it and see what we've got. And
It's
it's a
just a
dream.
dreaming.
Oh,
Oh, that is probably the single worst thing he could have gotten out of his egg. We'll see what he does with. Does he even opt to keep it?
technically, it's better to have a familiar than not having any. There are some manipulations that you can use your familiar for. I'm not going to touch on that subject yet. Let's see whether we will have a situation where that comes into play.
Oh, he got hit with the level down. That's pretty brutal. In his situation, being familiarless, that level down. Fortunately, when he manages to kill this clown, he'll immediately get his level back. But any experience that he had built up towards getting to level 10 is just gone. And does he get hit with it again? Okay, thankfully he does not get hit with it again. But like Chai had said earlier, it is probably for the best that both of the runners actually end up keeping the Dreamin', whether Deme decides to hatch it or not. It makes a
Deme
little bit
didn't
of a
find
difference.
it yet, right?
Yeah, I don't think she's found it yet, no.
But it's going to
But
be on the 9th floor in the spawn room, so she will find it.
yeah, and there's a bit of good and bad to keeping it as an egg and hatching it. If you keep it as an egg, you have the potential to use it as what we call an egg bomb. You can throw it and whatever's inside will come out and do an attack or a spell on whatever you tossed it at, and it can do some big damage. because when the egg hatches from being thrown, it actually spawns at whatever level you are plus 50, so it can do some pretty significant damage. However, if you hatch it and it's something liftable like the Dreamin is, you can actually perform a specific glitch that can really get you out of some sticky situations that we'll touch on if we happen to see that come up. I know for a fact that Lady Deme has performed this trick in previous tournaments before, so it is definitely on the table for something we could see today. She's getting dangerously low, but it looks like, does she have a Scarlet Wand now? She's doing
No,
a
it's a
lot
live
of
one.
damage.
It's a live.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, the
It's
bomb
a bomb
trap.
trap. And
Okay, that is
okay,
1-1
it's a
now.
game.
Both runners have died once to one trap each. And oh, we have Sustainna hatching another egg. Is this the Palumpa egg? He did. He hatched the Palumpa egg. I'm wondering if he is trying to do some fusion strats to get his spell he could use. And to answer some question or a question from chat, Sustainna is likely going fast on these floors because of enemies like the one he's encountering right now, the Kraken. The enemies on these floors are particularly tough. This is another section of the game where it's the tower is telling you that you're really not prepared to be here. The enemies are significantly stronger. They have well, the Griffin that we saw earlier has the strongest fire spell in the game, and it's very, very trigger happy. And then you have these abominations called Krakens, which have, I want to say 55 or 57 HP. They hit like a truck, and if you hit them with a metal weapon, you also get retaliated for, I believe it's 10% of whatever damage you dealt. Is that right, Chai?
Sorry, come again. I was like talking to our runners about the next seat. What was the question?
Sorry.
10%?
The Kraken retaliation, if you hit it with a metal weapon, it's 10% of the damage you
I
dealt, right?
think 25% even.
25. Okay, so that's even worse than I gave it credit for. Yeah, Kraken are definitely a monster that the game is telling you you're not ready. Um, if we get onto some of the higher floors, there's actually enemies on the high 20s to low 30s that actually have the same amount of HP as a Kraken. So Kraken are a bit powerful for no particular reason other than to just be a gatekeeper.
Yep. And not only they hit like a truck, they have tons of HP. They also have this annoying talent, let's call it, of giving you a recoil damage. If you compare the HP and the damage of many monsters from the tower, Krakens are around the level of like floor 20 at least, if not higher. So that says something. And both of our runners are ready with the seats. Seats are correct. We will be able to start them and have this exciting decider. We will see who will win this match. So like we discussed in the beginning of the second game where Sustainna lost CUNY, that yeah, it's definitely a bad thing. But it did make him go faster. Lady Deme had a little bit more comfort and room for exploring, fighting, etc. Sustainna had one thing on his mind: just get to the elevator, and this time it paid off.
Well, he actually early on because he lost Kuhn so early, he actually did spend a bit of time grinding up his level a bit, which I believe helped him out quite a bit in his finding of the elevator and going higher and higher. Um, it definitely would have helped him if he had continued his climb on, I believe he was on floor 12 on the last round. And that those few levels that he gained really would have helped him out a lot. Maybe not so much to the point that he could really fight back on against the enemies without using items, but just the fact that his items would do more damage, because items like the spell balls, the fireball and blaze ball and stuff like that, do more damage the higher level you are. So if he had just gone for elevator, 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 and it was only like level 3 on that floor, he would have done significantly less damage than if he was, say, level 8 or 9. So spending the time doing that because he lost Kuhn early actually was pretty beneficial, because if he had gotten to the point where he would find Garudas and whatnot, he likely would have been able to kill them in one fireball and gain even more levels quickly, which would have let him be able to, take a hit or two without necessarily fear of an early grave.
Yeah, touching a little bit more on the subject of the question from Dragonfire, why are we using a randomizer for a game that is pretty much one big random thingy? Yes, we are using it mostly to a little bit like de-randomize the game, so that the race can be a little bit more exciting. Back in the old days, dark times, when we didn't have a randomizer, both of the runners were playing completely different towers, and the random element took much more part in deciding the winner, because it could have been so that like one person found amazing items early on, the other had like horrible luck and just found monster dens all the time. So to level the playing field a bit, we are using the randomizer, so both of the players are playing exactly the same tower. All the floors will be exactly the same. All the items that are found in the tower will be exactly the same. There is still some element of randomness in terms of different movement, because one person can go left and find an elevator, the other person can go right and find a monster den trap, but that is now all up to the decision of our runners. It's not the tower itself that makes someone having a little bit more advantage than the others. So yeah, that's exactly why we are using it. And one more additional thing on the same subject is that because both of the runners are playing exactly the same tower, they're not able to see each other's streams. So if someone goes faster and finds some egg or something, some good item, and checks what it is, the other person doesn't know about it. They need to go and find it themselves. So this way we are trying to make sure that both of the runners are playing completely blind, but at the same time they're playing the same blind thing.
Exactly, and I like that you pointed out it's not only a randomizer, but it is also a de-randomizer in a sense, because there are a lot of settings that you can do with different game modes. You can actually unlock the second tower, and there's like an endurance mode and stuff like that you can play, but you can also just use it so you can play the same tower climb with a friend. So it's pretty versatile in what you can do with it.
Yep, and it's not just that thing that we are doing. The previous tournament that we had was called Random Toolkit, and that one was even more randomizer than what it was than what the game originally offers. So, like we are seeing here, the game always starts with CUNY, with same items, etc., etc. And many runners already got so comfortable with it that for them beating a tower like that was not much of a challenge, and it was sort of the same thing to watch over and over again. So our very own Sen Knight here made a rule set for the tournament where your starting familiarity is randomized, your starting items are randomized, and like one of our runners who is here in the chat, Uga, said, it's like a completely new DLC to the game from the 90s. It's definitely fun thing to watch. So if someone didn't see it, I think you can find those votes somewhere around to see what the randomizer can offer to you.
We're seeing a bit more of the HP as a utility item on Deme's side with 3 HP against the flame early on. She's making me very nervous.
In the chat, she was earlier complaining that she just couldn't catch a breath in the previous game. That all the time she was running low on HP, and before she was able to recover, she had to fight again and lose some of it. So now she's at max HP. Hopefully, she will stay close to it as much as possible. I don't think that she is happy like playing with her luck a bit, going to very low level of HPs. And like Food says in the chat, yeah, we should be blaming Sand Knight for that, definitely. After all, it is his seed.
I do want to point out that early level ups are incredibly important. Getting to level 2 is probably the most important thing you can do. You get I believe it's 16 HP? 10 HP. You go from 16 to 26 HP from going from level 1 to 2. And every hit point is incredibly important when you only have 16 to work with. So getting these early levels along with getting a solid inventory is definitely something that they want to focus on. And conveniently enough, killing a single troll is actually enough experience to get both you and Q to level 2 immediately.
I don't know whether you noticed, but Sustainna has found a very exciting item. It's cursed, but it's still so good that that I think it's worth having it equipped regardless. We already touched on that subject a little bit earlier. It's a wand, so of course it gives him the bonus. But now it's a Scarlet Wand, which is of fire element, which is the same element as Cuny's element. So now it's a game. I'm pretty sure that like if Deme finds this item, and there is high chance that she will, because she's exploring those early floors fully in hope of finding some good items, she will equip it immediately. And we can see like how the game changes now completely. Having this fire wand, nothing can survive pretty much more than 2 hits.
Yeah, just look at that damage. Between 17 and 20, depending on enemy type, that is insanely good for this early on. And it's going to continue to be really good, even against, maybe not so much against the water monsters like the Bloom and Maneva, but it's going to give them a significantly higher fighting chance anyway. And like pointed out in chat, Wooga had pointed out that if you find a Scarlet Wand in an any % run, cursed or not, it is definitely worth equipping. So we'll likely see Deme equip it immediately once she finds it.
And okay, that's
a life wand. Okay, I mean that's also a solid choice if she doesn't find the Scarlet Wand.
But I was more worried about the fact that Deme again was very low on HP, like close to 5 or 3. She's making my heart beat faster.
Yeah, they're well, maybe not so much Sustainna in this round, but Deme is, she's definitely pushing her luck with the HP, but it's she's not down yet. So there is that. She still has a fighting chance. And is
there
this
you go.
the Scarlet Wand? That is the Scarlet Wand. And yes, even though it's cursed, I don't think she minds too much. That Scarlet Wand is just amazing, especially finding it this early. She'll have a lot of opportunity to gain some easy level ups and to be able to explore the floors a lot easier now, because even some of the tougher enemies like the balloons, they can hit fairly hard. Won't really be too much of a problem. Yeah, she'll have to take a hit unless she gets unlucky and walks into it or whatever. Oh, that could be really bad. Scarlet Wand does not mean much if you don't have a Cune to back it up with.
Then it's actually one of the worst items. But to answer the question in the chat from Hex, yes, we touched that already. When you've got a cursed weapon, you are cursed. And you being cursed decreases your luck. When you have lower luck, your dodge chance, your hit chance, trap activation chance, all of those go against you. And that state will stay there even when you use the curse scroll. The game doesn't tell you about it, but thanks to our amazing programmer who created randomizer, he also checked the game code that there is a state that is given to you when you're cursed, and this state can be healed only
Oh
with
no,
Cure All Herb.
Sustainna, his Kyun isn't fighting back. He's not on AI 1 or 4, and it looks like he can only take one. He might be close. Oh no, Kyun moved.
Ouch!
Oh, that hurts so bad. He was 2 spaces away.
Now, with that co-movement, CUNY would be found again, because CUNY is again visible to you, and you can command it again when you are 3 tiles away from it. So that's one of the techniques that some of the runners do, that when your familiar is teleported away with a warp trap, and you know where that familiar is, you sometimes set it to AI1 so that it wouldn't move, so that you can walk up to it. Sustainna didn't do it, and he paid the ultimate price. But in the last game, that gave him a win. Let's see what's gonna happen now. But can you tell us, Reven, a little bit, because if I recall correctly, Sustainna didn't change his lineup. So can you tell us a little bit more, why do we many times change that lineup, and what can it cause if you don't?
Generally speaking, runners will change the lineup, and what the lineup actually refers to is Kyun's position in relation to Ko. As you can see on Deme's side, Kyun is actually directly behind her, which is generally how runners will play the game. And what that does is it significantly reduces the likelihood that you'll run into a trap, because whatever tile Ko steps on, Kyun will follow directly and also step on that tile. So if it's a safe tile, it'll, Kyun won't hit a trap, and if it is a trap tile, Ko will hit it first, and it won't activate again on Kyun. However, I don't believe Sustainna has actually changed his lineup in any of these matches. And what we call in the community, we call that playing Minesweeper, because you essentially double your chance of finding a trap, and traps are really not a good thing to encounter. There are some that are fairly benign, like you can a reversal trap will turn the screen upside down, stuff like that, and it doesn't really mess with you too much. But if you hit a paralyze or sleep or blind trap, or something like that, especially on Kyun, if he gets blinded or something, you actually can't command him to do anything. So he's essentially useless to you. But not only that, if Kyun is blind and you're standing directly in front of him, he'll actually try to attack you because he doesn't know what's there. And there's a target in front of him, so he can actually turn into an enemy briefly. So generally, we will try to reduce the amount of traps we encounter by putting whatever familiar we have, in this case Kyun, directly behind us. And it usually ends up making things a bit easier for the climb. Oh, and the unfortunate familiar bell now. That would have been great to have 2 floors ago. That would have immediately brought Kyun back to Sustainna.
That's tower taunting Sustainna, but Deme is
Yeah.
also in a little bit of a pickle, but it looks like she will be able to handle it. She hit another very annoying trap, paralysis, where you cannot do anything. You just stay and wait to wake up while your familiar tries to defend you, and sometimes that's not something that you wanted to do. But yeah, this time Lady Deme was able to survive that, and the climb continues. But we can see that she's already 3 floors behind Sustainna. That's how much of a difference going without familiar is. Although Sustainna now is in a little bit of a pickle. He's pincered by 2 water monsters. So let's see how he handles that.
I think his best option in this situation would have been, well, I guess that worked out all right for
That
him. I
works.
probably would have opted to throw the Palumpa egg personally, but it worked out for him, and
A little
he's
bit of a
yeah,
misstep. He takes 2 damage, 2
getting.
additional attacks.
He does have the
Yeah,
medicinal herb.
yeah,
It's
that's good.
okay. It's all right. It's all right.
But it's
He's
still fine.
back to full now, so it's like nothing ever happened, right?
Oh, the tower really hates him now. Enemy after enemy. But
He
there is
okay.
an elevator.
He's in the elevator. I was gonna say he does have a holy bell, so he can still get out of this situation.
Yep.
But why use a holy bell when the elevator is right there? So Sustainna moving on to floor 9. We have Deme moving on to floor 6 after she gets a quick heal going on.
And now Sustainna is being followed by a periscope. What is that, Revan? Can you tell us? Haven't touched that yet.
Sorry, what was that? I was reading chat.
That Sustainna is being followed by a periscope.
Oh, yes, yes. One of the dreaded early game enemies. Oh, oh no.
That situation.
That is called a U-boat, and they are particularly powerful and pretty tanky, but the most annoying thing about them is that, oh, and he gets to level down on top of it all. The most annoying thing about the U-boat is that they will submerge into the ground, like you see there, where you just see the periscope.
That's not gonna be enough, unfortunately. Blinder will
Yeah,
still make it that both of them attack.
he needs a dodge here.
And
Oh, sustain
unfortunately,
it down on
Sustainna
floor
goes
9.
down.
It's not over. Sustainna can still win if, for whatever reason, Deme does not make it to floor 10. Sustainna will actually take the win here. Because Sustainna made it to floor 9 first, Deme will need to reach floor 10 to take this. So there is still hope for both runners at this point. We can't count anybody out.
Yeah, so Lady Deme right now looks to be in quite okay situation, but the tower is the tower. From a good situation, it can go to a very, very bad one in a moment. Like Sustainna was in a good situation too, had good equipment. Suddenly a warp trap, and that equipment means nothing. So that's what we say, that tower hates everyone. Let's see how Deme handles it. She's fighting the water monster. So with a Scarlet Wand, it's possible, but it's still a little bit tough. We can see that this time it wasn't 2 hits that killed it, but actually 3 hits. And when you hit something 3 times, it means that you get hit back at least twice. So yeah, Deme is again at sort of low HP. Hopefully she will be able to recover it before she finds another monster. I didn't see her inventory whether she has a medicinal herb.
Oh, that was a bit of an interesting thing that I don't think we pointed out. Oh, and a go-up trap. Deme actually put down an item from her inventory just to get rid of it, and she put it down, and the space that she put it on actually rejected the item. That is a very clear indicator that whatever tile that was had a trap on it. So she could have actually attacked that square, and it would have immediately deactivated that trap. And we also saw her use a bit of a neat little trick that I'm sure most people that have played this game before might be aware of. But she actually fed her Qun I believe it was a wake-up herb, just to clear inventory space. But while the wake-up herb is designed to, cure the sleep status, even if, we're seeing it again here with the anti-chaos, if you feed an herb or a fruit to your familiar, it actually gives you a tiny bit of MP back, which probably isn't the super needed at the moment. But if you are doing a run and you're getting really low on MP, that can be a pretty decent way to keep your familiars going with 2 or 3 MP per item fed to them. And here we're seeing a sleeping U-boat. I didn't quite get to answer your question fully, Chai, so why don't you go into a bit more detail on why U-boats are as scary as they are?
Well, they hit hard and they're water and they hide underground. So when we were like seeing that periscope following Ko, this is a state in which many U-boats like to roam around. And the annoying part about that state is that in that state, you cannot hit the U-boat. You have to wait for the U-boat to go above the ground. And that happens pretty much only when U-boat is right next to Ko. What does it mean? It means that U-boat attacks first. And because they hit hard, it's not a thing that you want to do.
Yeah, and then they also have the added. They have a nice amount of HP and defense, but they also have the water element that Chai touched on earlier. So we have elemental disadvantage, so we're not going to be hitting them for as much as we would like to, and they can hit really, really hard as well. So they're pretty scary all around. Pretty much any way that you can think of, U-boats are scary.
Deme was in a little bit of a pickle, but it looks like she'll be fine. We have seen something very interesting earlier when she was fighting a Bloom. Not this one, but the one before that. That Bloom didn't attack the Cuny directly, but rather tried to spit its pollen on it. That's an attack that tries to confuse your familiar. And confused familiar, like in many games, would attack you. But for some reason, those blooms don't know that Cuny has a little nice talent of being immune to being confused. So that's an attack that we actually do want to see because it does nothing. It's just a waste of turn for the bloom, which on its own could just hit you for a quite high damage.
Yeah, it's one of the few bones that this game actually throws to you. While it makes the bloom fairly tanky and the opposite element, so it does quite a fair bit of damage to Kuhn. It does give him the ability to be immune to its brainwash ability, so it does give you a free turn every once in a while. The game does not usually throw you too many bones like that, so we like to take what we can get.
So Deme is on the 9th floor, that's where Sustainna fell, and Deme used exit loop. She knows where the elevator is, so she just wants to get there, and she will be declared the winner. Of course, she didn't know that Sustainna died on 9, but yeah, now we've got them as a winner. I'll try to invite our runners to the chat so we can ask them question, but the match goes to Deme.
Yep, with the floor 10, Deme takes round 3 and the win of the first match of the Rock Me to the Top tournament. While we get them into chat or into chat with us here for an interview, if anybody in the chat has a question they would like asked, now would be the time to get it out there and we can see if we can get an answer for you. So they should be with us momentarily. I do have a few notes here on some things that I want to ask. I'm sure Chai also has a few questions. But also, speaking on this tournament, we do actually have more matches scheduled for this week. We have a match tomorrow, and we have a match on Sunday as well. I need to double check quickly what times they are scheduled for.
And now we have both of our runners in the chat. Hello, Lady Deme. Hello, Sustainna.
Oh, GG, Sustainna.
Pain.
Congrats.
Pain.
pain,
You
and
guys-
pain one more time.
Congrats, lady.
Night seed.
You guys have Sand Knight to thank for these wonderful seeds.
Yes, wonderful is definitely a word.
It's a word. There are many words.
5th floor
to
monster
describe the
house.
Situation.
Yeah, so maybe let's start
Maybe
with
the second
Sustainna.
seed was in some ways not the seed itself, so much as the fact that it never let up. There was not 10 turns in which to recover some HP really anywhere in there except maybe when I use that holy bell, and I'm not sure how long that would have lasted, maybe how that was going.
Deme, would you like to hear the stories about Kuhn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to hear the stories because, like, Sustainna, you've got many. Let's start with game
Okay.
1. Let's start with game 1. How did
So,
you like
yeah.
that monster then?
So, I don't want to talk about the monster den. Kuhn made an adequate meat shield. Kuhn made an adequate meat shield to get into the monster den. That was awful. Apparently, you were like one step away from stepping on it yourself, but on the 5th floor, just monster house. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a Sand Knight seed.
Yeah, Deme
Yeah.
was, I believe, exactly one space away from hitting the same monster den.
Yes.
Well,
She
I'm
saw a
glad
balloon
nothing
there and
like
she
that
just went
happened.
So that was the first adventure with Kuhn, where he valiantly sacrificed himself so I can barely escape. Seed 2, he Shawnee D'd on the 2nd floor and ran off into the sunset, never to be seen again.
Oh dear.
on
The second seed,
subject
which is the round I
Sustainna.
won, I was like crawling around. Oh,
On
it's
that
Septak that had it
subject,
happen to?
We've got a question.
Okay.
Why are you
Okay.
not changing your lineup? for
Because
the CUNY.
I believe the reason you lost Kuhn in that second match is because the way you had your lineup, he got stuck in
Yeah.
a pit and you ran away, which was a bit unfortunate. We had made a mention, I believe, in the third game about lineups, because I don't think you changed his lineup in any of your matches.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a silly question. Am I supposed to?
No,
I mean, you don't.
you
No,
do
you don't have to by any means. It's just a
It does
you.
cute avoid track. That
Yeah,
is the thing about it.
Ah.
And leading to the third game and talking about traps, tell us, Sustainna, what happened there?
You want to know what my favorite Crash Bandicoot game is? Warped.
You know, there's a familiar bell in.
Here's
was
the funniest part.
Here was
Here's
the last seed. Or
here's
was
the
the second
funniest
seed
part.
that one?
Okay, no, the second seed is when he left off into the distance on the 2nd floor and
Right,
died.
right. In one of
Warp
the
Trap's
seeds,
even
though, I
funnier.
had a familiar bell. And I don't remember which anymore because it all just sort of blurs
That
together.
was seat number 3. Sustainna found that familiar bell too. 2
Right
floors
after he
lost his
already
CUNY.
yeah.
Right after he died as if to insult me. But here's the funniest part about the warp trap. I got one space away from able to use a healing herb on him.
Yes.
Oh, that is sad.
And he
Yeah.
got just... I was hoping he would dodge at least one attack, but I guess that was No, one space away from being able to take it back. I had a Scarlet Wand and everything. I was ready to rumble.
That it was a scarlet wand. It was a leather shield. It was nice. It was
And
generous
King was like,
with the
no.
spell balls. I had a ridiculous number of glasses, loops, etc.
Oh yeah. The 3rd seed was rife with good items. It's just I got out RNG'd.
Yeah, it was like nice to watch when we could see CUNY and a cyclone beating it up, and CUNY just was walking like left, right, and just like getting beaten up, and we could see that you were just one tile away from healing that CUNY.
Looks like you're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo.
Yeah, and
Oof.
exactly it died. Like it had 2 HP and got hit for 2, and that was it. Like
All he needed to do was tank one more hit.
it did tank it. It just put him down.
Well, the tank's supposed to stay standing, not crumble. Come on
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So I would like to point out that in all 3 of these matches, there were a significant amount of traps hit on both sides.
Yep.
I don't have an actual.
My second one was as I limped along, bleeding from every limb and orifice available. I then run directly into a bomb trap.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get to. We were talking about how HP is a renewable resource and about how you were scaring us being so low because you couldn't get a chance to really heal for more than a handful of turns, and then you hit a bomb trap and it was just all over.
Yep. Sometimes the tower is just out for blood. And this is one of those times. And like, if the first race of a tournament is an omen, everyone else should be very afraid.
Yeah.
Chai,
but-
can we keep Sand Knight away from the seed generator from now on? Thank you.
I can take a little bit of a blame. Still blame Sand Knight, but I actually asked Sand Knight to generate the seed. So
You
maybe,
did
Oh,
maybe
so
this.
it's your fault.
You did this.
Yeah. Going back to the subject, right? No, I think like it's just we didn't have a tournament for quite a while. Tower was just hungry, so unfortunately you were its first course. Now it should be like a little bit better, right?
I hope so.
God, it's unfair when it's only us.
Yeah.
Of course, no one ever said the tower was going to be fair. As my mother likes to say.
I would say that tower was fair. Basically, it was tormenting both of you. Like it didn't.
Yeah,
give,
that's a point.
Yeah, it didn't give like leisure to any of you. Maybe sometimes a little bit more one than the other, but like if you check the big picture, it was pretty much even. So,
Yay.
Mhm.
but yeah, very good showcase of what the tower can do, and I guess that's it for tonight. But that's not it for the Azure Dreams. This is just the first match of this tournament. We will have the tournament running for the next 4 or 5 weeks. To be honest, I'm not so sure. But already tomorrow we will have another match in this amazing tournament. It will be at 2 p.m. EST match Damage Plushy versus Poulet. That will be very interesting match. Poulet is the winner of the
Lovely.
previous tournament.
Yes.
So one thing that we can say that he's very, very, very good. Plushy is actually one of the newer runners. She already did run before in one of the tournaments, but haven't put that much into practicing. And now it seems that she does want to do it again. And lately she's been practicing a lot. So we will be able to see what she can do.
To say, I don't think I'd seen Damage Plushie before, and I keep a good track on these things. So it will be fun to commentate on this tournament debut.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
And
That-
both of today's runners actually have a vested interest in who wins and loses tomorrow's match because they will be your opponents for next week.
Oof,
So
Yeah.
definitely.
that's going to be scary. Either Poulet or a person who can beat Poulet.
Yeah, both very scary ideas.
They may be named Poulet, but they do not play chicken.
Mhm.
A very fair point. So, unless there is any questions in chat, I'll look briefly. I don't see any questions in chat. I think that'll be it for us tonight.
Well, I just hope the tournament this year offers enough lives to the tower to keep it satisfied until the next year.
I'm
Yep.
sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Thank you very much for commentating.
Thank
Oh,
you for
very
playing.
much welcome. Yes, thank you guys for playing and giving us an entertainment tonight. Thank you, SpeedGaming, for allowing us to host our tournament here, or for allowing us to play our tournament and hosting it for us, I should say. And thank you very much to everyone in chat for making all of this possible. You guys are great. And Chai, do you have any final words before we sign off?
Just take care and hopefully see you tomorrow.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.